My name's Brian Latina. I'm a Precinct 4 town meeting rep. And I was looking in the paper the other day, and I'd like to welcome you to the debate tonight. I was looking in the paper the other day, and we have a bunch of open town meeting rep positions. And I'd like to remind the folks here and the folks at home that it's an important job. This is the job that is the lowest level of community service, elected community service in our town, that actually votes on our budget every year and different town warrants and that sort of thing. So if you have an open slot in your precinct, you can actually write your own name on the ballot this year and have a couple of neighbors write your name in on the ballot, and you might also become a town meeting rep. Just an idea. It's an important job, and it's a way to give back to the community. I'd like to welcome the folks here to the debate and remind all of us that these folks have put their names forward to help our community, and I think they should be applauded for that action and appreciated for going that extra step. I'd like first to introduce our candidates for Constable. If we can start with Charlie Wojcik. Introduce yourself. Give a little bio of yourself and tell us why you want to run for Constable.
Yeah, my name's Charlie Wojcik. I live at 280 Boston Road. I've actually lived in Chelmsford well, my whole life, except for I spent some years in the Navy. I've been on a planning board for 3 terms. I did a term as library trustee. And now I'd like to give back a little bit at Constable because I have a little bit of spare time.
Okay. And next we have Andrew.
My name is Andrew Weiner. I live at 20 Mount Pleasant Street. I decided to run because my wife and I chose the town because of its school system, because of every part of this town, and we love living here. However, in the past, I might not have had time to devote to another elected position such as school committee or board of selectmen. And at this point, I just want to give back to the town. And I think this is a good way for me to do it.
Terrific. And finally, we have Kevin Whippen. Sorry. William Harvey, or Bill Harvey?
Yes.
Bill.
I'd like to thank the Chelmsford Republican Town Committee for inviting me here tonight. And I'd like to also thank Mr. Brian Latina as the moderator and also a vocal town meeting rep in Chelmsford. Once again, my name is, in a good way, my name is William Harvey. I'm 45 years old. I've resided in Chelmsford my entire life. My family's resided in, the Harvey family's resided in Chelmsford for generations, going back to working in construction, to Harvey Lumberyard, State Line Lumber, and now focusing mostly in real estate. My profession, I'm a trial lawyer. I'm licensed to practice both in Massachusetts and New Hampshire. I've been educated throughout my life in the Chelmsford school system. I graduated in 1989. After graduating in 1989, I was educated once again at State College. I went to University of Massachusetts Lowell. There I graduated with a cum laude and a Bachelor of Science degree in 1993. After graduating, I went to law school full-time at the Massachusetts School of Law in Andover, worked full-time while going to law school, and graduated in 1997. Since that time, I've been practicing as a trial attorney. I'm running for this elected position for Constable because I believe I have the education and experience necessary for this position. It would be a great honor to succeed the late William Spence, who was a wonderful constable for many, many decades. And I had a relationship with Mr. Spence with regards to service a process of most of my civil matters as well as evictions. And he knew how important it was to effectuate service of process in a prompt manner. Being an attorney, I understand how important it is to be an effective and reliable constable. In that, I believe I will be in the town of Chelmsford. Once again, my name is William Harvey, and I'm running for constable, and I'd like to have your support April 5th, and I respectfully ask for your vote. Thank you very much.
Terrific, thank you. We also have a fourth person running, Richard P. McClure. He's out of town and couldn't attend tonight. But, in consideration for that, we have 4 folks running for one position in town. Constable was an interesting position. We talked about some of the other races, and people get excited about school committee and selectmen. And I know the other night the Business Association didn't have the constable candidates come, so we thought it was an interesting thing to have 4 people running for a single position. And I have to be honest, I didn't know what a constable was until doing a little bit of research. If I could, would each one of you tell me one power granted to the office of constable? And could we start first with Andrew?
Obviously, for the town, the first responsibility is to the town clerk's office, and we'd be serving posting town meeting warrants.
Okay. And Charlie?
I was doing some research on it, and I guess one of the major things is Chapter 239. That's a tenant law from Mass General Laws. So you'd be serving some papers for eviction and things like that.
Okay. And Bill?
Well, one of the most important issues with regards to being a constable is following the Massachusetts Rules of Civil Procedure, which is Rule 4, which is service of process, and to effectuate the service of process in a timely manner, because that's how lawsuits begin, that's how evictions begin, and if it's not served within the appropriate time frame, the case could be dismissed, and as a result, you could lose your opportunity to be heard in court forever. And the rules specifically state that the constable shall serve the complaint with the summons promptly, although it allows a 90-day window. But most lawyers, private citizens, people that are going through evictions, they want it to be done immediately to begin the court process. And Charlie mentioned also that the eviction process. The eviction process is a process that a lot of people attempt to do on their own, and it winds up that it takes months and months and months more to evict a tenant that's not paying rent. And the reason why is because the service isn't done correctly. There's a 3-Monday rule, they call it. It's complicated, but the tenant has to be served within a certain time frame and on a certain day, and the complaint and summons has to be returned to the court on a certain day also.
Terrific.
It's very important.
Terrific. Thank you. We do have a timekeeper, and I didn't mention times with the constables as far as keeping the meeting running. Not an issue at this point, but in the event that if we had a bunch of questions from the audience, we would set some time limits, and we have a yellow card, if you can hold that up, to give you a little bit warning that we're running over, and then a red card to stop. I did a little research myself, and I found something fascinating, colonial laws about constables, where this came from. I don't know if you checked it as well. I wanted to read something from 1646 for the office of constable. Every constable within our jurisdiction hath by virtue of his office full power to make, sign, and put forth pursuits or hues and cries after murderers, manslayers, peacebreakers, thieves, robbers, burglars, warrant where no magistrate is at hand. Also to apprehend without warrant such that are overtaken with drinks, swearing, breaking the Sabbath, lying, vagrant persons, night walkers, or any other that shall break our laws. In any of these, provided they be taken in a manner either by sight or of the constables themselves or by present information from others. And going back a little further, the Roman civilization is where this first came from. The office itself was the Constable, if I said that properly, or the Count of the Stable. They were in charge, they were the commander of the Roman cavalry. So it's quite a position that your candidates are running for here. In Massachusetts, I believe, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, the office of constable has all the same powers of a police officer, plus some. They actually have civil arrest and civil jurisdiction as well. So along those lines, question I have let's start with Charlie. If you're elected to the office of constable for our town, do you plan to go through some sort of training, and will you appoint deputy constables from our town?
Yeah, I thought about that a little bit, and I checked on it. And there is a constable training school in Newton. So if I need to go to that, I will enroll myself into it and pay for it.
Okay, and deputies?
Deputies, whatever I'm told to do.
Okay. Bill? I can read that again if you'd like?
Yes, please.
Okay. If elected, do you plan to go through some sort of training, and will you appoint deputy constables from our town?
I personally don't believe I need the training. I've had plenty of interaction with sheriffs, constables, on what type of service duties that they do. And with regards to appointing a deputy, I would appoint a deputy constable.
Okay. And Andrew?
I actually have 10 years of law enforcement experience, albeit as an auxiliary police officer for 2 communities, in which my training was in-house with both police officers and constables. That being said, it's been a long time. I would take any training that I would have to do to serve the town properly.
Great.
And as for deputies, I actually have had, I've approached some people, including the gentleman to either side of me, that if I do win, they would be part of my deputies.
Okay. So there are deputy constables that the constable can also, I guess, appoint. It's an appointed position.
I believe it's 8. I believe it's 8 total.
8 total? Okay, up to 8. Question I have in looking at some of the information that I could pick up. Let's start with let's start with Andrew again. Is this a paying position, and does it include health care or other taxpayer-supplied benefits? And do you know if the town has a budget that's related to the office of constable?
It is paid on a per diem basis, per warrant served. If elected, I would not be getting any town benefits. So, to my knowledge, the taxpayers wouldn't be paying any benefits or paying for any benefits of mine. I believe we're 1099'd, in fact, that we have to clear, declare on the IRS's forms at the end of the year.
Okay, do we have a town budget line for the office?
I honestly do not know.
Okay.
Because the thing is, anything we purchase would come out of either, depending on campaign finance laws, our campaign funds or on our own. Like, I don't believe the town will supply us with, a badge. I don't believe they'll supply us with a uniform shirt, so that would be on us.
Okay. And Charlie, same question. Is this a paying position, and does it include health care, other taxpayer benefits, and does the town have a budget for this position?
According to what I know and what I asked Ornerina, the town clerk is, there's no payment for it as far as health care or anything. The payment is per delivery and she thought it was $50.
Okay. And as far as town budget?
I don't know.
Okay. And Bill?
Yes, I concur with Mr. Weiner on this. I didn't really look into it much because I didn't run for this position to get paid by the town or to collect health insurance benefits. To me, it's more of it's a volunteer position. That's how I look at it. However, there is payment with regards to your services that you do. Most, it's according to Mass General laws. The specific statute, I think, is 269. I can't quite remember. And it'll specifically states exactly how much you can charge per service. For instance, a divorce, something that's in hand, it's $30. If you do a service of process that where you leave it at the last place of abode, it's $20, and you also get paid for mileage, which is it's 33 cents per mile.
Okay. Thank you very much. And we have a question from the audience that I'd like to, let's start with Bill and work our way back. As a town constable, how much time do you think this position requires per week?
Being a town of like Chelmsford as opposed to a city, I personally don't think it's a job that takes a lot of time. However, if you want to put some advertisement with local attorneys and other organizations providing services, then it's all up to the individual and how busy they would like to be.
Okay. And Andrew?
I actually concur with Bill. The time, from what I can gather from talking to the clerk, is it would be minimal. But again, if this is something that someone wanted to pursue further, with the proper training, they could make themselves available to other attorneys, other courts, and serve the civil process as allowed by law.
Okay. And Charlie?
I think I'd just rather work for an arena, so therefore I figured 1 or 2 hours a week would be sufficient.
Great. Okay, and another question came in. Do you anticipate any situation where you might need police or armed support to serve a notice or a warrant or some form of service? And Charlie, I'll start with you.
I guess that's always a possibility, isn't it? I believe I talked to Sandy about this, and what she said was just go get yourself a policeman.
Okay. And coming back through Andrew.
When I first thought of running for election, I wanted to find out from On Arena what was entailed. And for the town clerk's purposes, the job is far from risky. However, when serving some civil process, depending on what you're serving, it can get, I'm sure, rather dicey. That being said, I did talk to the police chief's office, and if properly licensed and holding the correct license to carry firearms, there is nothing wrong with us carrying to protect ourselves. But if it was a noticeably dangerous situation, yes, I would call on the police.
Okay. And Bill?
Yes, I agree with Mr. Weiner. There are certain situations where it could be contested, such as you have an eviction, but you want to have notification from the landlord what type of a tenant it could be. In addition to like contested divorces, you're not too sure whatever you're going up for. So if there's a history of violence with certain people, history of some mental illnesses, that's a time when you'd ask for the police. But the police in this town are short-staffed, they're very busy, so it would be very limited to ask for assistance from the police.
Great, thank you. We do have a couple of members of the media here. Member of the Lowell Sun, local newspaper, and the Chelmsford Independent. I believe we have a photographer. Do either of you have any questions for our candidates for constable? Okay, that's fine. And for the candidates, do you have any questions for the other candidates or the audience?
A question for the audience?
It's kind of fun.
That would be fun. Wish I'd thought of that. No, I have none.
Okay. That's all the questions I had. If you'd like to do a closing statement, we do have a camera, a couple cameras in the back. And I'd always suggest that any candidate, at the end of their statement, ask for the voters to vote for you. And what I'd like is a closing statement and why we should elect you over your other candidates sitting with you. Let's go Charlie first.
Yep, Charlie Wojers, and I'm first on the ballot. And I will do the best job I possibly can and vote for me on April 5th.
Okay. And Bill.
Yes, as I said before in my opening, my name is William Harvey. I'm from Chelmsford, lifelong resident. I care about this town, and I truly believe that I'm the most qualified candidate for this position, and I truly respected the work of William Spence. I think we should all take his name into consideration and remember the wonderful job that he did, and it would be an honor for me to follow in his footsteps, and I respectfully request your vote on April 5th. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And Andy.
Well, compared to the other candidates, I guess I'm a new person in Chelmsford. I've only been here about 15 years. When I first thought of running for election, I had some people asking me, well, do you think the fact that you didn't grow up here would hurt you? And as I worked for the Independent, covering some of the Board of Selectmen meetings and school committee meetings and elections, I've seen longtime incumbents lose. I've seen new people fresh on the ballot win. What I feel I bring to the table is my law enforcement experience, but also just a genuine love for the town. And I want to give back to a town that's been very good to my family. So on April 5th, I really would appreciate your votes.
And thank you. I think we've got all of you covered. If you have any other comments that you'd like to leave us with, we're running a little bit early. I realize that. But I thank you for your shot at the ballot. And if any of you have a phone number or an email address or a website, that sort of thing, feel free to let us know that. The committee can put that out, or you can say it over your microphone there.
I get enough emails, but anybody wanted to send me an email, it's pretty easy. It's spelt out attorneyharvey@yahoo.com. Thank you.
And Andrew?
My email address is electandrewweiner@verizon.net, or on Facebook, facebook.com/electandrewweiner.
And Charlie?
And my email address is charliewojers@comcast.net.
Okay. And with that, I thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we'll take about a 5-minute break.
Meet you, buddy.
Cape and Lockdown.
Oh, I do.
Okay, welcome back. Our next debate has two folks running for the two positions on the school committee. So it's not a contested race, so to speak, but these positions are extremely important to our town. In fact, the paper is showing me that we're going to spend next year about $54.5 million on our school system here in Chelmsford. And so without too much ado, I'd like to introduce to you Barbara Scarr, incumbent candidate for school committee, and John Moses, the newcomer to school committee. If I could, would you introduce yourselves and kind of give me a quick bio of your time in Chelmsford and who you are, what you do?
I will not, unlike Mr. Harvey, give you my age or any year that I graduated. I moved to Chelmsford in 1985. I'm a blow-in, but my children are all townies, both of them. My son is right here. He's a senior at Chelmsford High School. My daughter is a senior at UMass Amherst. I went to Virginia Tech. I grew up outside of D.C. I went to Virginia Tech for my undergraduate degree, went to Suffolk Law School for my law degree, and I've been on the school committee for 3 years. It has been a very challenging 3 years. I think we've come out in a better position than we were when I was elected. Mr. Moses and I have had several conversations. We get along very well, and I'm looking forward to working with John. We are sharing our campaign party on Sunday, and we would like to invite everyone to attend. We're going to be donating any money that is given to us to the Lions Arc, which is a new organization that is geared toward acts of random kindness. So we are being randomly kind and going to give them a nice little fund to begin their journey with.
Terrific. And John Moses, Mr. Moses, give us a little bio.
John Moses, and I apologize, I have a cold. I'm going to just put that out up front. I just wrote a brief statement because we're not going to be doing an actual debate. My wife is named Cynthia Moses, and I have a daughter, Ella, who's 5 in kindergarten in the Byam, and a 2-year-old boy who is a precocious little man who should be in bed right now. So with that, I'll just kind of read my statement. First, I wanted to thank the Republican Town Committee for the invitation to come here. Presenting in front of people is a rare opportunity, and one that I really do appreciate. And I really wanted to say how much I appreciate the current committee and how open they've been to speaking with me and sitting down. Barbara and Evelyn have been fantastic. And most especially, I would like to thank my wife. Without my wife, I wouldn't be able to attend any of these things. And she has sacrificed a lot for me over the years, being in the military and now going onto the school committee. So I imagine, as a newer person in town, that you would want to know why I'm running and kind of where I come from. And it's really simple. I just believe in public service. My first public service was in the Army. I joined the Army in 1996 as an Army reservist in high school, and I did 3 tours overseas, so 2 in the Middle East and 1 in Afghanistan. I completed my service this year after 20 years, so I'm retired, and I wanted to figure out something else that I could do, and I couldn't figure out anything that could be better than to contribute to our community than our school committee. There are 3 things that I really want to bring to the school committee, and this is me personally. This is no reflection on anything that's happened. These are just the things that I want to bring. Transparency is the first thing. Lord Acton once said, everything secret degenerates, even the administration of justice. Nothing is safe that does not show how it can bear discussion and publicity. What things that should be public will be public while I'm on the school committee. Anything that can be public should be, and the light should shine on it. All government should be that way, not just injustice. Accountability, I will hold myself accountable, and I will hold the people that we hire accountable as well. I'm not afraid to ask hard questions, and I'm not afraid to do it publicly when necessary. And the last thing is access. I believe in public access to your elected officials, so I will answer every email. I'm not giving you an SLA around that. I'm just saying I will answer every email, and you will be able to communicate with me at any given time. So thank you all for your support. I am asking for your vote, even this is an open seat. I am asking for your vote on April 5th. If you were in precinct 5, we had 3 open seats that nobody decided to run for town rep, and I would like to be written in for one of those positions if you so please. And thank you very much. That's it.
Thank you. I talked to the candidates, even though it's not a contested race, there are a lot of questions around school committee, and they're graciously interested in hearing what the questions are, and if I could be a little provocative, if that'd be okay.
Used to that by now?
You know, you're used to that. And I think a lot of questions came in from the folks out there, and I think this is a great opportunity.
Sure.
And John, I'd be remiss if I didn't thank you for your service publicly.
Thank you.
Military service is important, and that's one of the things that some of these kids coming out of our schools goes and they do, and that's fantastic. Thank you very much. First question is, the topic is new high school. There's a lot of chatter about building a new high school, especially now that Bill Rick is building one, and frankly, Wilmington just completed theirs, and the kids are walking into a new building. However, we just invested about $1 million to upgrade our bathrooms and plumbing at Chelmsford High School, and we spent over $18 million on energy services on the contract to upgrade the HVAC and many of the high-ticket items in our school systems in order to extend the life of our buildings. And not so long ago, we spent almost $30 million renovating McCarthy and Chelmsford High School. John, what say you about the concept of looking at the facility and maybe building a new high school?
Yeah, so we're actually in the process of conducting an assessment on all of the high schools as it stands right now. I do want to see what the results of those are before we make any decisions. I personally don't know if the high school is really the problem. We have other issues within the school that might actually have to take priority. Eventually, we're going to have to build a school. And really, it boils down to, that's the newest school in the system, and it's 42 years old. It takes about 10 years from the time you vote on a school to get it. Someday, it has to end up on the ballot, and it has to be voted on. We have to bring in more revenue somehow. I don't believe the residents, because we carry such a large burden in this town, is the answer, which means bring in business. So hopefully the selectmen have some great ideas about how to bring some business into town. And really, I think our priority should be fixing some of the problems. We have students going to class inside of pods that are really old. Animals live underneath them. That's not acceptable. I went to school in a 150-year-old school. When I would go to the bathroom, rats ran across my feet. This is the Varnum School in Lowell. This is a true story. I don't ever want to see Chelmsford get to that point. The average age of the schools is going to be very old in 10 years, so.
And Barbara, the same question.
I had not heard that rumor about a new high school.
There's a rumor? I
Well,
didn't hear the rumor.
I did not know we were talking about building a new high school. As far as I know, the facilities assessment that we are currently conducting is to look at our schools and see what our needs are. John makes a very good point. We have pods at a few of our schools, and McCarthy especially comes to mind for me because I tour the buildings often, and there are gaps in the pods that the teachers buy their own duct tape, and they put the duct tape on to close the gaps to the exterior. Those pods need to be replaced. Now, if the facilities report, the assessment comes back and says, your best bet is to build on permanent structures rather than replace the pods, because pods are not cheap. I mean, when we had them installed at Parker 20 years ago, I think they were $1 million. That's full-day kindergarten, almost. So that doesn't make sense to me. So, you know, the facilities assessment we're looking at is, how do we replace the pods? How do we address issues like, you know, the bathroom at the high school that's finally being done? Those kind of things. I have not heard any discussion about building new schools. Don't worry about that. Our schools overall are in great shape, I think. I mean, there are issues in our schools. We've converted to solar panels in the buildings. Some of them don't maintain heat at a level that the teachers would like. It's a new kind of heat. So they have, you know, intakes and outtakes, and cold air blows into the rooms at some point during the day, so they panic. And some of the classrooms, it's to a science. They can say, put your coats on, it's 10:30, in 5 minutes the temperature's going to drop 20 degrees. And those classrooms get cold. Some are below 50 degrees sometimes, and that is not conducive for learning. So we have to address issues like that. Some things will be ironing out. We know when we need parts. We're on top of it. And the town is terrific to work with. I think we're in a much better place than we were a few years ago, and we're getting better.
Good, thank you. And Barbara, as the incumbent, maybe you can start with this one. Today, our state senators unanimously voted final approval on wide-ranging legislation meant to stem the OxyContin and heroin abuse problems that we have in our state, and I guess the whole country. Can you give us an update, give the update to the public about where the school committee view of our drug situation in our schools?
We work closely with the police department. I can say, I'm not going to say it's not a problem in our town. It's a problem in every town. We are not overwhelmed at Chelmsford High School with drug issues. I'm sure the kids would maybe argue against that. My son would be the first, but the police don't consider it a huge issue. We are concerned about what's best for our students. We have Narcan that has been introduced in every building. It's an antidote to an overdose of opioid, and we are on top of it. We are actually ahead of it. We haven't had to use it. Hopefully we will never have to use it. But I approached Trinity Ambulance and Ready Real Estate in town and asked if they would make donations to pay for the Narcan in our system, and they both immediately said yes. And so it comes to us having been donated, and with any luck, we never have to use it.
Terrific. John, do you have any comment on?
The only comment I have is that I'm glad the town has approached this in a serious way. I'm going to continue to work with the committee and with the police department on the same issues. Opioids are a problem, generally speaking, in our country, and it needs to be addressed at some level. And the local level is probably a great place to address it. In a great town like Chelmsford, we have a great supportive community, so I'll just continue working with them.
Great. And John, I have a question about activity fees and that sort of thing. And it goes, we have a great education system here in Chelmsford, and it does provide a great system, but the bus and parking, athletic and club fees, activity fees, some parents feel they're paying for private education, frankly. Is there any chance that you can reduce or eliminate some of the fees for parents and reduce the taxes, yet still to provide the best education to our children?
So, first off, I absolutely empathize with parents that spend money on things for school. I pay for my child to be on a bus. I pay for all of their activities. I'm on the same boat. It's a complicated issue, and it's a revenue issue, and we need to, if we're going to have full-day kindergarten, there are options. We're going to eventually have to have full-day kindergarten, and the options are we pay for it, we find another way to pay for it by raising revenue, or parents pay for it. And those are really tough choices. That being said, I am one vote out of the committee. I would like to fight to find the right balance. Parents in my generation do pay for things sometimes. It's kind of an accepted thing. When I went through school, my mother didn't pay for anything. I went to public school, and it's just different now. And I think we just do the best we can to mitigate that personal expense, not at the expense of all the other residents.
And Barbara, you have comment about fees and the rest, maybe you can add on, or?
Not really much more. I mean, I know I have to pay a fee when my son drives to school. It's the same fee as the bus fee. I have to pay a fee when my son plays a sport or is involved in an activity. And they add up. You can't say it's not another tax. It's a tax on people who have children in the schools, which wasn't a burden that was paid by other generations, but this has become a fact of our lives. Do I like it? No. Is it going to go away? Absolutely not.
Next question, and I'll start with Barbara. Last year, the Board of Selectmen and School Committee voted to have the Department of Revenue do a study to analyze the possibility of consolidating department services, like financial services, payroll, purchasing, with the town services. 2 years ago, as a cost savings move, the school committee outsourced the custodial services.
It was longer than 2 years ago.
Was it more?
Yes.
This year, you were discussing actually hiring building custodians back for each of the schools and hiring substitute teachers and possibly a coordinator, a substitute teacher coordinator, if I understand.
We have.
What's your position on that? Kind of the balanced budget plus issues of outsourcing versus having in-sourced services?
You know, I just feel like when the decision was made with respect to the outsourcing of the custodial, it was made purely financially. It was just a financial decision. And bottom line, we got what we paid for, and our buildings have suffered because of it. They're not clean. I walk through them all the time, and sometimes you just shake your head. What did we do? So we've decided to adopt this new hybrid model, which would place in our buildings during the daytime a custodian who is an employee of the school district. We would have a head custodian in each building, maybe a head and an assistant in the high school because it's larger, and they would be responsible for that building. At night, we would hire smaller companies to come in and do the cleaning at night when students aren't in the building, and then the head custodian in the morning walks around the building, does looks around, says, okay, you missed a spot here, but you did a great job there, let's get on it. And we think we're gonna come out with a better quality product. Is it gonna be cheaper? No. It's gonna be a little more expensive, but not astronomically more expensive. Is it better for our buildings? Absolutely. Is it better for our students? Without a doubt. So.
Thank you. And John, I'd like to expand on my question a little bit. In terms of your service, federal service, military service, a lot of the activities are outsourced in that environment.
Sure.
The food services and cleaning and maintenance and those services. Is it possible that we could still do this, maybe even the hybrid system, and maybe the issue is not one of personnel being our personnel versus someone else's, but in your experience, having a better contracting officer, if you will, maybe that's the issue.
So in terms of contractors, I've dealt with thousands of contractors all across the globe, and having a solid contracting officer is important. I've actually spoken out about this issue as a candidate and as a parent prior. I really believe that we should have local people in our schools cleaning the schools. I don't believe that privatizing it was the right decision, and I know it was made for financial reasons at the time, but the results were clear. We spent not even a lot less money if you count all the unemployment benefits, because really we didn't spend any less money. It just came out of somebody else's bucket. I believe that people that live in a town care about their town. I have family members that clean floors in schools, and them and their father cleaned in the schools for 20, 25, 30 years. They knew the students. They were some of the most popular people, and actually the people that people confided in sometimes when they couldn't confide to a teacher. So yeah, management could have been part of it. I don't think that was the solution. I think really the hybrid model is really the way to go, and I've thought that from the beginning. If we get some local people in there, and hopefully some local companies. I really would like to see some local companies bid on it. I would love to see some veteran company, some smart veteran go out and start a company and then bid on those projects. And just so if there's any veterans watching, there is money available, up to $300,000 through the SBA, where you can actually go out and apply and start your own business. All you need is a business plan and a little bit of guts to go out and do it. So that's my answer.
Terrific. Thank you very much for that. I have a question from the audience, and I think it's a good one. And maybe I'll come back to Barbara. What will be the school student population during the next 5 years? And what's its impact on the budget? I know it's a little bit of a reach, but the comment here is very good. Our kindergarten student class of 2020 is alive today.
We hover around 5,000 total population of our schools. The projections, it's funny because like right now at Byam, we have a very high population. We have at Center, that's third grade at Byam. At Center, the fourth grade is high. South Row has smaller class sizes. So there's just these bumps depending on where you are around town. We have building going on in the Byam district, so we need to look more closely at Byam for next year. Harrington will have a smaller fourth grade next year. They won't need that one of the teachers, so we'll probably shift it over to Byam. We're always looking at those numbers. I don't see any huge population growth, but if it continues like it has on 110 and maybe 129, I don't know, then we'll look at it again. But we are always looking at those numbers.
And John, I'll expand a little bit on it. One of my favorite things is Mill Road and 110. we're about to put 108 apartment, 1 and 2 bedroom apartment complex units in there. And when they did the Turnpike Woods development, I remember the contractor estimated that there'd be 1 child in that entire development of 26 units. I drove by yesterday, there were 8 waiting for the bus. If we put 108 units on top of the hill there and they go to school for 13 years on our population, it's roughly $15 million over, maybe $1 million a year to add to the budget.
Sure.
What are your thoughts on the current population and over the next 5 years?
Yeah, so we've been watching the assessment. We've gone out and seen the building assessments, and one of the things they talk about is population. And we're actually kind of in a lull right now, and it's actually going to go up over the next 10 years. When you talk about adding property and adding students into it, that property pays taxes, which offsets some of that $15 million you're talking about. I mean, people are going to want to move to Chelmsford. It's a beautiful town. It's got great open spaces. Mr. Stanway's over there. Great open spaces, great schools. It's the reason we moved here. And for a town like this that wants to grow and bring in professionals, I mean, these are just sacrifices you have to make. I'm not saying we have to turn into Lowell. We don't have to turn it into like a Woburn. But people are going to want to come here. People are going to have to go through school here, and these are just things we're going to have to deal with. And that's about it. I hope that answer is satisfying.
That does for me, thank you. And John, I'll ask you this one. I know you weren't on the committee, but
Sure.
Taxpayers received another bill in the form of a personnel judgment related to the misallocation of taxpayer funds.
Sure.
I'm sure you're aware of the situation we were in. Can you describe any key policy changes or corrections, oversight that you'd look for restoring the taxpayers' trust in the school committee itself?
Sure, absolutely. And I really think it boils down to asking hard questions. Like I talked about in my principles, making sure your government's transparent, the budget is transparent as possible, your meeting notes are public, everything needs to be public. And I actually will tell you, I've met Dr. Lang a few times, and I'm actually very impressed with him. Very smart man, clearly works hard and cares. But just because I like the work he's done doesn't mean you don't get to ask him hard questions. And I think in the prior situation, questions were asked, and maybe that information wasn't forthcoming. I feel like somebody withheld some things. It takes a lot of hard work to actually dive into the numbers, to look at the budget, to look at the warrants, and figure that out. So if it ever came up, I would ask the hard questions and make sure it was exposed and make sure that people could know what's going on inside their committee and inside their schools.
Thank you. And Barbara?
Could you repeat the question? I want to make sure I heard it correctly.
I can. Taxpayers received another bill in the form of personnel judgment related to the misallocation of taxpayer funds. Mm-hmm. Can you describe key policy changes and the corrected oversight to restore our taxpayers' trust in the school committee itself?
Okay, I will tell you that the first thing, and I've worked very closely with Evelyn Thorne on this. Evelyn is the queen of policy, and I am her sidekick. And we spend, I can't tell you how many hours on policy. And the first thing when we suspected that there were some problems is we went through the 4,000s. We started with those financial policies and noticed they weren't being moved on. And we started, getting antsy and started looking at other things. And it really came down to a personnel problem. We identified that. Our solutions to it were different. The board differed on how we should handle that. It took a while to get to the point that we got to. I am not going to make any disparaging marks against anyone who has worked for the system, but we are in a much better place. And it really comes down to asking those questions that are not comfortable. And, you need to keep an arm's distance with the people who work for you. You can't be friends with them. You can't. It's just, you can be friendly, but you have to question things that don't make sense. And I think we did that. And, I'm proud of the way that I was able to contribute to that. I am not proud of how it was handled.
Okay, thank you very much for that. And let's see, John, what's your position on who should pay for full-day kindergarten? Do parents pay, or is it free? Is it taxpayer-based? It's a significant cost to the town, certainly, in
absolutely.
additional salaries and benefits as well, and we certainly pay for the benefits for the rest of our employees' lives.
Sure.
What's your position on full-day kindergarten?
So it's a two-part answer. I believe kindergarten should be free. Do I think kindergarten will be free? No, is the second part of that answer. I don't believe, I would love for kindergarten to be free. I went to kindergarten for free in 1983 when I went to kindergarten in Lowell, which was a war zone at the time. It just may not be in the cards. Without some significant increase in revenue, without a change in the state government, without some change in Chapter 70, parents are going to end up paying part of it. And I will be included in that when we have full-day kindergarten in a few years when my son goes. And that's what it is, and that's the situation. For a parent that works full-time that pays for daycare, it's actually a lot less expensive to send your kid to kindergarten. My wife's actually going to make fun of me because I've been saying kindergarten wrong the entire night.
I noticed that, you said
Yes.
kindergarten.
I know, it's a
But I
Lowell
think that's a
thing.
New England thing.
It's a New England thing, so, and I just called myself, so she's probably watching. So the answer is yes, I think it should be free. Is it gonna be free? Probably not, and we will just work really hard to make sure it minimizes the impact on parents, is really the best we can do.
Is that a marketing, is that a marketing issue more than it is let's not do it until we have enough money stored up in the bank?
Well, here's the problem, is kindergarten's gonna happen. Mandatory pre-K is coming, and you can't have mandatory pre-K without kindergarten, so it has to happen. And there are some people that will argue, and I've read this as well, kindergarten is one of the most important grades. It's a formative part of a child's education, but the most important part is getting it started. And once you get it started, then you can work on figuring out other ways to pay for it. And it's unfortunately just a sacrifice that people might have to make. Yeah.
Barbara?
I don't think there's anyone in this room that believes if we charge for kindergarten, we will ever not charge for kindergarten. If we put that in place, it's just gonna be a fact of life. It's
Right.
the way it is with bus fees, activities fees, sports fees. Are the parents willing to pay it? On one of my recent nights off, I went over to a meeting in Westford, because I don't get to go to enough meetings, and they had a presentation on full-day kindergarten. They're starting it next year. They're having a lottery to fill 20 spots for full-day kindergarten. They're charging $4,200
Yep.
to go to a public school, and the auditorium was packed. There were so many people there asking so many questions on how they could, get services and da-da-da-da-da. It was just, I felt like, wow, this wouldn't happen in Chelmsford. We would have this meeting and probably not be able to fill this room. It's a whole different world, and people really need to, if that's what they want, if they want to pay that fee, if they're willing to pay it, they need to fill that room as well. We need to hear that side. Personally, public education in my mind is free. I don't know how to get past that. It's a roadblock for me. But parents could convince me otherwise if they're willing to pay $4,200 a year to send their 5-year-old to school,
And I would like to add, there has to be some kind of accommodation for low-income families, though. There has to be some kind of accommodation for low-income families.
Right.
When you're talking about putting 25% of your family budget up to try to put a kid in kindergarten that should be free, that's a really tough pill to swallow. Anyway, I just wanted to add that on.
Terrific. Thank you both for that. One last question I had here, and I think the press didn't have school committee questions.
Thanks, Alana.
Thanks.
Great, thanks. My feelings aren't hurt.
They'll take nice pictures. I read a statistic that showed Massachusetts was about this. I think it was the 6th when you place us against other countries' successful educations. Massachusetts, as a state against other countries, was about number 6. Indonesia, I think, beat us, and some European countries. But when you look at the United States in general was down in the 50s, someplace like that. Massachusetts in our country, compared to other states, was number 1.
Absolutely.
Number 1. We had the best educated students in the entire country out of 50 states. And my comment was related to Common Core versus our current testing system. What's your position on Common Core and the PARCC testing compared to our current program that got us to number 1 in the country and number 6 in the world?
So for me, and I'm going to be upfront, First of all, I know Common Core Park are very emotional issues for people. I am not an expert on either of those. My child's in kindergarten. I haven't dealt with it personally.
You will be.
I will be dealing with it. So I don't have a good answer in terms of an opinion on it here in town, right? It's something I'm gonna have to learn and I'm gonna have to figure out. I will say, generally speaking, when you talk about curriculum, you put really good people in place that understand the curriculum and have a good vision. Common Core is really just a set of standards, and then the state designs the curriculum. So that's kind of in our hands. So again, I don't have a strong opinion, and that's something that I will pick up and work with the superintendent to make sure it's done in a smart way.
Terrific. Barbara, opinion on Common Core and park testing.
You know, I've talked to a lot of teachers about this. It's not the standards that the teachers mind, it's the testing. So when you teach to the standards, it's comforting for the teachers. I think they know what the standards are. They develop as a team how to teach those standards. They have all kinds of programs within that. They're dedicated, so dedicated. We are very lucky in this town. It's that testing that's out of their hands that just drives them insane. Park is a test that's developed by private companies, sold to us, and then, oh yeah, by the way, they sell the tutoring packs that students have to take. It's very frustrating. So comparing that to MCAS, the test that got us to #1, it's a no-brainer. You know, we voted as a school committee not to use Park. It just doesn't make sense to me.
So we kind of teach to the test to some degree, but it's
I don't know that
more
it's-
local with the Massachusetts program.
Yeah, I just don't know that we're I mean, how do you not teach to a test that's going to determine what kind of money you get from the government? I mean, you kind of have to teach to the test. But, you know, the line at the schools, they will deny that they do that, but they admit they do it. When I talk to them, they're frustrated by that. What else can they do? You know?
I just want to add on, I think the reason we're #1 in the country is because we have great teachers, but that's just my opinion.
We do. We have great teachers in this
Great
town.
teachers.
I agree. I guess it's kind of a funny situation. I'd like you to ask for the voters to vote for you, keeping in mind that you always want to beat the blanks. There's a guy out there named Blank.
Oh, I hadn't thought of that.
So you do want to compete against that guy. So I'd ask for a simple closing statement, give him your name and look at the camera, and ask for the vote, and it's on April 5th. We just came off of a voting, quite a voting turnout, and I hope we'll have the same number of cars in the parking lot for April 5th for our town elections. It's very important. And Barbara?
My name is Barbara Scar. I am an incumbent for the position of school committee member. I'm asking for one of your 2 votes. I am asking also that you give your second vote to John Moses. I think that we are in a good place, and we have a lot of people to thank for it. Evelyn Thorin specifically. I see Glenn in the audience. As an aside, I want to mention to the group that I learned tonight that my son is a Republican. He told me that he's really a realist, and that's what Republicans are. So we're going to have a conversation later.
You should have a badge on if you're a Republican.
Get him a badge.
My badge says deputy. I want to be a deputy.
So John Moses, running for the open seat that was held by Evelyn on the school committee, and I asked for your vote on April 5th. You can give me your second vote and give your first vote to Barbara. I'm looking forward to the opportunity to bring a new voice, to bring my demographic into the school committee, and I look forward to seeing everybody on April 5th. And don't forget, 5th Precinct, please write me in, John Moses, M-O-S-E-S, like the Bible.
And one closing comment, could you tell us, there's a campaign party and you're inviting everybody in this room, and I think on those cameras there. What night is that and where is it?
Sunday from 3 to 7
Yes.
at the
Chelmsford.
Chelmsford Country
Yeah.
Club. I want to say that when I met John and we had learned that we were going to be unopposed, John called me and I said, I've already booked a place for the party. Why don't you join us? And we talked about donating funds and he agreed. And then I said, have you bought signs? And he said, no, they're expensive. I said, you have better ways to spend your money. You have 2 little kids.
Yeah.
Don't buy signs.
I have
your
buttons,
kids-
though.
Have your kids make signs. We'll meet each other in the center of North Chelmsford, and we'll meet each other in the center of Chelmsford, and we'll hold our signs on the weekends. So we're running against each other, but it's a combined effort. So we'd love to see you at the country club. All donations are going to be provided to the Lions Ark, and it's from 3 to 7.
Okay, so it's this Sunday, 3 to 7, Chelmsford Country Club. Be there or you'll miss out on some.
A lot of fun.
A lot of
Mr.
fun.
Stanway's going to provide the music, and we expect dancing, and it'll be fun.
Okay,
Just a party.
If I bring you some sign materials, people can make their signs.
You can make signs for John or myself. We would hold anything.
And it's kid-friendly.
It is
Thank-
kid-friendly, yes.
Thank you very much for running, and I appreciate you both running.
Thank you for inviting us tonight.
Thanks. Okay, we'll take about 5 minutes to set up for the selectmen next, and we're running a little ahead of schedule.
Say that again? Not much. I don't know, there must be a run on tables or something in town. They must be scarce. Tables in town. Oh.
Oh, but the seat's high enough for me. My feet are right on the floor, it's perfect. Feel better.
Okay, if everyone would take their seat, please. Thank you. I'd like to thank the three folks here for running for our Board of Selectmen. We have 2 open seats. There'll be an election, town election on April 5th. And 2 of these folks will more than likely be our next 2 selectmen. So this is a contested race, and I'd like to run through some of the rules of this part of our debate, so to try to be fair to everyone. For selectmen, we'll have a question and position format. I'll ask each candidate to state their position on a given topic, and I'll give them up to 2 minutes to describe and defend their position. Their response would be to define the issue and then state the position. And then the other candidates will be able to agree with the position and to expand on it a little bit and mention their agreement, or disagree. And if they disagree, I'll give them a minute to disagree and challenge the position. If they agree, we'll give them 30 seconds, and we do have a timer in the room here, to basically agree with it. So if that's clear, okay? If the positions are unresponsive to the question asked, I may interrupt and redirect the response back to the topic or question asked. And I may allow another 15 seconds rebuttal and a 15-second follow-up to a response from your challenger. At 1 minute, 45 seconds when you're doing your position, Lincoln will hold up a yellow card to give you a 15-second, you can show them the yellow card there. 15-second warning, and you'll have a little bit of time left to finish. And at 2 minutes, or at the end of any other statement, he'll hold up a red card, and I'd ask that you stop at that point. Okay. The questions and topics were penned by me and our committee. And if time permits, I may also ask questions from the public, and we do have a few of those. The press has been invited, and we have 3 folks from the press here, and I may ask questions submitted by the audience, and the press will get a chance if they care to. Okay, any questions? Good. I'd like to introduce Pat Wojcik, Glenn Diggs, and Sandy Martinez. And I have a simple biography on each one, and I'll read that kind of to get us started. Sandy's an active community volunteer and a small business owner. She served as a Republican State Committee woman for 8 years, town meeting rep for the last 9 years, a youth soccer board member for 11 years, and she serves on the Community Preservation Committee. She's been married for 34 years and is a Blue Star mom from and a Bedford VA hospital liaison. Sandy was born in Waltham, raised in Chelmsford, and graduated from Chelmsford High School, as did her 4 children. She's been endorsed by Citizens of Limited Taxation for her positions on fiscal responsibility. Sandy respectfully asks for one of your 2 votes for selectmen on Tuesday, April 5th. And Pat Wojcik. Pat grew up in Chelmsford and attended the Chelmsford Public Schools, graduating from Chelmsford High School in 1970. She received her bachelor's degree in economics from UMass Amherst, where she was commissioned an Air Force officer through the university's ROTC program. After discharge from active duty, she earned her MBA from the University of Central Oklahoma. Pat served 1 term on the Board of Library Trustees before being elected to the Board of Selectmen in 2007. She was selected by her colleagues as chairman for 1 year. She has also served several terms as town meeting member for Precinct 5. Among other boards and committees, Pat serves as vice chairman of the Northern Middlesex Council for Governments and the director of the Chelmsford Military Community Covenant Task Force. She has also recently been elected as president of the Chelmsford Friends of the Library. And let's see, should have one more here. Okay, I'm missing your bio in my quick pieces here. Glenn, would you mind
No, not
giving
at all.
a quick summary?
I grew up in Somerville. I graduated from Somerville High in 1965 and 1970 from Northeastern University with a BS in management. I've lived in many towns in Massachusetts, some large, some small, some new, some older towns. I moved to Chelmsford in 1998 and have been here for approximately 16 years. Married my wife Valerie, who was a resident here since 1981. Together we share 7 children, 4 of which graduated from Chelmsford. I have been working in the private sector in sales and sales management for approximately 4 decades. And I chose to run based on seeing a need for the town for financial strength and so forth. That's it.
Okay, thank you. I apologize to the other candidates for not having the third bio. First question I have, and we'll give the candidate 2 minutes to give your position. Let's see. Pat, what is your position on the town manager's borrowing $500,000 from the rainy day fund to balance our operating budget at the beginning of the year? Recall a couple of years ago, the Board of Selectmen adopted a policy not to present deficit budgets to town meeting. And on the other hand, I know it's a little complicated, in the fall, the town manager used free cash to reduce our tax levy. Do you support the first practice as a way around the balanced budget policy, and the second one as a way of controlling growth of our property taxes? And if I need to restate that, I can do that.
I think I get it. It might be, kind of confusing for some people watching and trying to understand it. Sometimes the intricacies of municipal finance can be quite complex. But I did support both actions by the town manager. I think it's good to have a policy in place not to present an unbalanced budget. However, sometimes some of the revenues that are expected, it's difficult to be exactly sure how much those revenues are going to be. So I don't see an issue with on paper, and that's really what it was on paper, the town manager elected to borrow some money from the stabilization fund to present a balanced town budget in the spring with the full expectation that with free cash and other revenues that were coming in from the state and other sources, at the November town meeting, at the fall town meeting, October, November, there would be sufficient funds in order to balance the budget. I think it's a responsible thing to do, and by law, the budget does not have to be balanced until that time, until we're ready to set a tax rate, which happens in the November time frame. So I did support that, and obviously I do support any effort we can make to apply some of the free cash to reduce the amount of taxes that are going to be charged to the local residents. So I supported both of those initiatives.
Okay, thank you. And to the other candidates, you'll have a minute or 30 seconds. If you agree, 30 seconds to respond, and if you disagree with that position, you'll have a minute to respond. Glenn, would you like to agree or disagree? And I can read the question.
I'm going to agree. However, I think my answer will be more on a negative side. That is that it's not a problem now. But given that the state gives out mandates every year, somewhat limited budget for those mandates as far as funds coming to the town. At the same time, we are not getting any more money from the state. That as time goes on, that amount of money is going to create more and more shortfalls. That borrowing from the stabilization fund is fine, but sooner or later, that 500,000 will become 1 million, and then it's going to become 1.5 million, and then sooner or later, it's not going to be able to be paid back, and the stabilization fund will fall. So in the short term, it's fine, but in the long term, it's fraught with problems, and we need to address those problems.
Thank you. And Sandy, do you agree or disagree? And do I need to read the question again?
Well, actually, I think I agree with Glenn. When my household has a problem with the budget, I can't go next door to my neighbor and say, could you help me out? I think we have to think about the future, and the whole idea of a stabilization fund is it should be there for our use in emergencies, in my estimation, not to kind of balance the budget until the fall.
Okay, thank you. And Glenn, what is your position on the following statement? At times, the Commonwealth may not be the best neighbor in Chelmsford. Their Chelmsford 495 rest area has dozens of outhouses and has had them there for years. The Route 110, 495 on-ramp and exit there, the bridge is crumbling, and the on-ramp actually has one by 6-foot sections of concrete missing. And they've never actually cleared the sidewalks on Route 129 and the Route 3 bridge in the winter, nor have they painted the yellow lines back since year 2004. So what's your position on the Commonwealth of Massachusetts being not the best neighbor?
Well, I think if you're looking at it from the standpoint of Chelmsford, you can say that they're not a very good neighbor. If you're looking at it from the standpoint of the state as a whole, you can probably go out to probably every city and town in the state and find similar problems. That the money that we spend on infrastructure for road repair is inadequate, bridge repair inadequate. I think you find that every year with a new governor or with an incoming governor or an existing governor, there's always talk about adding more money to the budget for infrastructure work. I think that probably the best thing Chelmsford can do is, excuse me, just to be vocal and continue to be vocal, because the squeaky wheel gets the grease. But in terms of making us different from anyone else, everyone is asking for the same thing.
And if I could challenge a little bit, as a selectman, would you be in a position, or would you think about how would you approach the state? I'm not sure who that person is. As a selectman with the authority of selectmen, to make them a better neighbor in those 3 examples I gave you, clearing the snow on sidewalks next to a handicapped school on 129? Seems like a pretty easy thing to do.
To be honest, at this point, I really wouldn't know who it would be, but I would reach out to people in the town, perhaps in maintenance, who may have counterparts at the state level, who they would know who to talk to. You could talk to the representatives that the town has at the state level and reach out to them. But it's a monumental problem, not only for Chelmsford, but for every city and town.
Okay, thank you. And Sandy, do you agree or disagree? And in this case, do you have a sense as to how we might resolve it as selectmen?
I think I have to agree again with Glenn. Thank you, Glenn. I think it is a problem, but in front of my house, they do plow the sidewalks, and so it's not a problem for us in my neighborhood. They have these little machines that go up the sidewalk. And I really think that Chelmsford does a really good job, as best as it can, with the money that it has and the budget that it has, clearing the roads. I haven't had that problem on my street, at least.
How about the state of Massachusetts and with regard to the 495 outhouse situation versus having a building properly plumbed and not full of mold?
Well, the outhouse has to go. And there should be a proper facility there, I think, and I think it would be up to the town, up to us, to go to our town representatives and ask them to go to Governor Baker or whomever it is that's in charge down there of those things, and ask them if it can't be fixed. It's a health hazard.
Okay, thank you. And Pat, agree, disagree?
Generally agree. I mean, we do need to do some more advocacy as far as, reaching out to officials at the state level. But just on a couple of points, over the next 3 years, there are 2 bridges over 495 that will be replaced, the one over Hunt Road this construction season, and then the one over North Road in the next 2 construction seasons. So we will see some efforts there. And I think the more representation we can get on regional transportation committees where those funds are allocated also helps the town of Chelmsford. And I used to be on one of those committees, and I felt like it definitely was beneficial to the town.
Okay, thank you. Sandy, what is your position on rezoning the Route 129 corridor with an overlay district that appears to allow high-rise buildings, maybe some new restaurants, dry cleaners, perhaps a hotel? It appears the town manager and others consider the Route 129 section to be a new revenue source.
Well, I have mixed feelings about it. I've spoken with Evan Belansky a couple of times, and I've talked to the town manager. I've been talking to neighbors that are going to be affected or feel like they're going to be affected by it. The neighbors don't want it. They feel that it's crowded and congested enough down there. Evan says I also feel that they should go and fill the empty space in the buildings that we have unoccupied right now. We're losing Kronos, we're losing Mercury. I think we should seek to find new tenants for those before we develop any other property in town to bring in more business and more traffic.
Okay. And a little follow-on there from my education there, from the point of view of our planning experts and our town manager. Is this area targeted, and do they have, maybe you've met with them, do they have a sense as to what revenues these things would bring in if we change the design? And I had seen something about the guesstimate that within a year that building that Kronos represents now would be full and have someone else in it.
Well, I called Evan Belansky today because I wanted to understand the situation better. He believes that it will be filled within a year. He did not talk about any revenue estimates.
Okay. Glenn, agree or disagree, and your comments?
I totally disagree in terms of, I think it's the #1 priority for the town. People want taxes to go down. That isn't happening. If you want to reduce taxes, there's only 3 ways to do it. You either cut services, you find more state revenue, and neither of those are going to happen, or you increase economic activity. We need to refocus our efforts on 129, not only to bring in additional businesses, but to change the zoning on it so that we can bring in major players. I'm committed in my candidacy that I want to raise the 20% that Chelmsford has in economic development to at least 25% or more. To do that, we need to make a total effort out there of all the town boards. And it's a really long answer that you can't answer in this kind of time frame.
Okay. And Pat, agree or disagree?
I guess I agree more with Glenn. I think that we do need to fill those buildings that are going to be vacated sometime in a not too distant future. And one way we do that is to allow amenities to be in there. And I don't think that means we have to redevelop anything, because if you go to Cross Point, they have restaurants and they have all the amenities right in the Cross Point Towers, and you couldn't tell that really from the outside looking in, that there's a restaurant there or a dry cleaners or a hair salon. So I think we can repurpose some of those buildings that are there, bring in more business that's the kind of business we'd like to have in the town of Chelmsford, and maintain or generate more revenue from the commercial base, as Glenn has mentioned.
Okay. And Pat, I'm going to circle back and challenge the idea of competing with Burlington. I think the town manager had mentioned that we may be losing businesses to a town like Burlington, and I think of the 128 Route 3 intersection there. Is that what we envision in your mind? Is that what you envision Route 129 to look like in, say, 10 years?
Do you mean as far as traffic and congestion? I would say
Combination of traffic, congestion, and the kind of buildings that are at that intersection, which is not unlike 495 Route 3. It's 128 Route 3.
Well, like I said, I don't see the actual buildings changing much. You know, maybe the facade might alter a little bit, but I don't see new buildings being there. I just, as I said, seeing them repurposed, and I see the traffic. I mean, there may be a need for another traffic signal somewhere along there. I mean, we already have quite a few traffic signals in that area from say, Sunny Acres all the way out to Route 3. So there probably wouldn't even be a need for that, but I don't see it being congested like Burlington is. I think Burlington maybe is more attractive because it is closer to Boston. Maybe there are more hotels or whatever for people to stay there short term. So I would not expect us to turn into a Burlington. I would expect us to turn in, you know, maybe if you want to compare it to something, maybe a Lexington, a nicer, you know, lower key type community that still has a healthy commercial industrial base that provides some tax relief for our residential taxpayers.
Mhm. And Glenn, as a business person, the 129 intersection there, would you envision taller buildings, 4 or 5 story buildings like the Burlington section?
Again, I disagree with Pat. I think that's what it should be. Again, I'm answering the question on the tail end, so there's only a short time, but it's a really long answer. We need to create a tremendous amount of economic activity. We want to ensure that we can pay for our schools, to pay for all the other amenities in town, to keep the town basically the same that it's always been. However, this one small section needs to generate the income to make sure the other 80% stays the way it was.
Okay. Could you, and as a follow-on, could you estimate what that revenue stream might look like? Wild guess. If I said, I think Kronos, the town manager said, Kronos, from a tax point of view, 300,000 square foot building was generating about $250,000 in taxes, if I recall.
I'd like to see many Cronoses out there that size. You know, people have been talking about bringing in amenities down to that area to keep the businesses there. I don't intently agree with that. I believe in bringing in big business, people. People will create a need for services. Restaurants will go there, but putting a restaurant isn't going to cause some big company to move there. It's the other way around. The attractiveness of having people there and people who can use those services are where we need to go.
Okay, thank you. And Sandy, to allow you a little follow-up there and a challenge, the 129 exit there is 2 left-hand turns. You have to turn left, crossing Billerica traffic when the UPS is coming at you at 9 o'clock in the commute, and the cars coming off of Route 3 have to turn, they have a double left and a double left onto Mill. Would you envision that area as it is with this new overlay district, or would they have to put a clover leaf in there perhaps?
I think it's going to have a devastating effect, quite frankly, on 129. I've been to Burlington, I've been to Lowell. I moved to Chelmsford because I grew up in Chelmsford. I don't want to see it becoming Burlington, and I don't want to see it becoming Lowell. I think that there are other ways to address the revenue problems. I don't think we need to have 6-story buildings along 129.
Okay, thank you. Comment from Glenn or Pat? Follow-up?
I disagree. You know, people have said, we don't want to see, for example, we don't want to see Wayne Towers in Chelmsford. You know, Wayne Towers, when the sun is going the right way, the shadow is in Chelmsford. That if you had a building on 129, on Route 3, that was facing the highway, that people came up and down all the time, and that some company with a big size could put their letters in 4-foot letters on top of it, saying, this is who we are, this is our image. We are a $1 billion company like Kronos is doing. We want to be a $2 billion company. You want to say that with a certain image. And Kronos is doing that. Kronos is moving no matter what because that's what they want to be. Chelmsford needs to do the same, but not everywhere. We only have a limited amount of space. So this is the place to do it, and I'm all for it.
Thank you. Pat, any additional comment?
Well, I wouldn't want to see Wang Towers anywhere in Chelmsford. I realize that they do cast a shadow sometimes over Chelmsford at certain times of the day. And you know, kind of in contradicting a little bit of what Sandy said too, I wouldn't see what what I'm talking about, creating more traffic, because we would have the same size buildings generally. I mean, we may have to expand them somewhat or have more area for parking, but if you take some of those building and use them for other purposes rather than offices, then if anything, you might have less traffic because the traffic would be more sporadic throughout the day rather than all coming in at the morning and all leaving in the evening.
Okay, thank you. I have a question from the audience, and what I'd like to do is give a minute response from each of you, same question. The town, and this is for Glenn, the town recently launched an opt-out plan for electricity. How do you think the rollout went, and how could it have been different?
Well, I think from what I've heard from various citizens, and it's been a very small sample, that basically if you were not already contracted with someone, just doing business with National Grid as anyone else, I happen to be contracted with someone else, that you were automatically going to be enrolled in this combined program that the town put together, which would save you money, unless you opted out by sending in a postcard. And I think the plan was sound, except that it should have been the other way around. If you want to join, send in the card. By doing it the way they did, they were kind of forcing the size of the pool of people and guaranteeing this company that they were going to do X amount of business to get that rate. Now, I, as an individual, contracted with someone and got the same rate. One person just negotiating on your own. So I don't think it was any great savings. I think it was a marketing play.
Thank you. Pat?
I disagree with Glenn. I think it was, I favored that program. I think, and I think the opt-out had to be part of it, because I would bet that people in this audience, if they haven't taken the action that Glenn has, have probably gotten over the past year a dozen different opportunities from different suppliers to go with a different person to provide their electricity. But by having, and they took no action. So I think if it were an opt-in, most people would just throw it away. So I think by making it be an opt-out, it brought in more. I mean, that was the whole point, to bring savings. I mean, it was, at least for the first 2 years, there's going to be a guaranteed savings, which I think could be significant for people that use any amount of electricity. As far as the rollout itself, I think it could have been handled a little bit better. There was a lot of information in the news media, social media, and the newspapers about it. But again, I think maybe people didn't really pay close enough attention to what the rules were, what they needed to do to opt out. And some people claim they opted out, and it didn't happen. So I guess that could have been handled a little bit more smoothly. But in general, I did favor the initiative itself.
Thank you. Sandy, the town recently launched an opt-out plan for electricity. How do you think the rollout went, and how could it have been different?
Well, I think the idea of choice is a good thing. When I shop at the supermarket, I like to compare prices on everything. Today I was looking at the solar rates, the electric rates, and I found a whole bunch of companies that have various rates. I think the opt-out wasn't publicized well enough, and I think there were many problems with it. The idea is great, but the implementation of it I don't think was very great.
Thank you. Another question from the audience, and I'll start with Sandy. There will be four conservation restrictions on open space in South Chelmsford. Do you support conservation restriction at Oak Hill in North Chelmsford? Sandy?
Yes.
Okay. Pat?
I guess I don't understand the first part of that question. There will be four conservation restrictions on open space in South Chelmsford. Do you support conservation restrictions at Oak Hill? I'm still not clear on the question. Are you saying that the same restrictions that we have in South Chelmsford on Oak Hill? Is that the question?
I think it's saying that we have some open space there, and it has some conservation restriction on the deeds, I assume. And they're just asking the question, should we protect Oak Hill in the same fashion?
Oh, we definitely should protect Oak Hill. In fact, I was on the Oak Hill Implementation Plan Committee, and that is going to be transferred over to the Conservation Commission, if not this year, then next year. And it will probably stay conservation forever, the way that it is set up.
Okay.
And I
So-
support
so-
that.
So to be clear, you do support conservation restriction at Oak Hill?
Yes.
Okay.
I guess based on the way you described it, yes.
And Glenn, there will be 4 conservation restrictions on open space in South Chelmsford. Do you support a conservation restriction at Oak Hill?
Well, I have to admit that I don't know exactly what the 4 restrictions are. I do support open space. However, I recently toured all of the present open spaces with the Chelmsford Open Space Stewardship, which I laud. I'm all for protecting open spaces. However, I look at it from the standpoint of I want to know what we're going to do with those open spaces. I don't think we should just be creating a bank of open space without having a direct idea of what we're going to do with it. The idea can be simply to provide walking trails. It can be provide additional farming, so we have our heritage in front of us and maintain that. So I don't know enough about the issue really to give you a yes or a no on it.
Okay, thank you. Do I have any questions from the press? From my 3 press folks? You can expand on it. Thank you. Yes, sir.
You all will be working closely with our town manager, Paul Cohen. You all know him very well. I was just wondering if you could give him a letter grade from A through F and why, as far as his performance is concerned in the past. If you could rate him, and this is for all the candidates.
And I'll repeat the question. The question is, our town manager's rating, I guess, is the basic question. How would you rate the town manager?
A through F.
A through F. A is good,
Yes.
A is good, and F is fail. And Glenn, if I could?
Sure. I would generally rate Paul's performance as an A. I think he's done a wonderful job with a town that is 20% economic development and 80% residential. I think it's very difficult to balance a budget doing that. I think he needs help going forward because you can't sustain that forever. But I think he's done A work. I think he's negotiated with all the unions, fair contracts. I think in general they're pleased, although some of them have taken a while, but again, it takes both sides to come to a consensus. I think that his team is very strong. We recently went through a period when it determined that the school systems team was, from an operations standpoint, was not very good. I don't think anyone has ever questioned their integrity, and the town, as far as being audited, has always come out sterling.
Thank you. And Sandy, how would you rate the town manager from an A to an F?
In the interactions I've had with him, he's been open. What I see of him at town meeting, I would give him an A. I may change my mind at some point, should I be elected, if he doesn't live up to expectations.
Okay. And Pat, how would you rate the town manager from an A to an F?
I think I'd give him a B plus. He does a very good job. He's very well respected in this area, in the state generally. And I have participated in his evaluation, in his performance evaluations before, and always given him high marks. He is a good communicator. He is accessible. He is responsive. He has a loyal staff that's, and he projects that loyalty back to them. So I think he's built a good team in town hall. I think he does a good job making presentations at town meeting. I mean, one thing that Glenn had mentioned that maybe there might be some work on is the settlement of the contracts. It does seem that very often we go 2 or 3 years into the time limit, the time that a contract has expired before it gets settled. So I wish there was something we could do better about that. But given the, sometimes the personalities and everything else that goes on, it's difficult at times.
Okay, thank you. I have a question that came up last year, and it's still an issue with one of the residents in town. I'm suspecting maybe the entire neighborhood in that area. So I'd like a 1-minute answer to residents' question. The paving plant off Littleton Road here in Chelmsford continues to create complaints in regards to noise, odors, trucks, and truck speeding. the 24/7 hours of operation create heavy truck traffic through the night and cause complaints. In order to allow the residents the opportunity to sleep through the night and alleviate their health concerns due to lack of sleep, would you be in favor of an ordinance that limits the hours of operation at the asphalt plant from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. on Mondays through Saturdays and closed on Sundays, similar to what is found in our surrounding communities at other processing facilities here in Massachusetts? Please elaborate on your answer. Pat?
It's difficult to put those kind of restrictions on a company like that, because a lot of the work that they do, unfortunately, is overnight. I mean, you go down Route 495 or 128 and you see all the paving they do during the night. I think there might be some other avenues that we can take in order to alleviate the situation for the neighbors. I mean, as we mentioned before about 129, this is one of those types of businesses that we really would rather not have in town, and we wish we could, move them somewhere else, but unfortunately we can't. So we just have to, make do with what we have and work with them, trying to negotiate with them on ways to have their trucks go the other direction, basically, so that they get to the highway quicker than going through the center of town and going through the neighborhoods and keeping the neighbors awake. I mean, I do absolutely understand what, the hassle that it is for them and the more than inconvenience, really, the quality of life that they suffer through. So obviously I would work with Aggregate Industries to do whatever we could to help them.
Okay, thank you. Sandy?
Trucks going by your house in the middle of the night is a problem for people in all parts of the town. We have trucks going by my house on Golden Cove Road at 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning. We have 18-wheelers going by. We have all kinds of traffic. My biggest concern about that plant is the quality of the air for the residents in the trailer park. My sister used to live there, and they used to complain about the smells coming in. I don't know whether they're hazardous at this point in time because I haven't looked into it. I believe that we should do what's best for the people of town rather than for the plant. If people in the trailer park are being harmed by the emissions and they can't sleep, I think that's a big problem.
And it's certainly the trailer park, and we have some new residences going in along that same road as well. Kensington Estates over there and some of the others. Would you, to expand on that a little, it is an asphalt plant, would you consider challenging the state to say, since they're paving state roads, have a backdoor entrance to the 495 there, and at 3 o'clock in the morning, who cares if they drive out? And Pat probably would say you can't do that based on being a selectman, but.
Well, not being a selectman yet, I don't know whether you can, but I think it's a good idea. Just something to pursue.
Okay. And Glenn, do you need me to restate the general?
No, that's all right.
Okay.
I've never lived and I've lived in two ends of Chelmsford, below the center and now in North Chelmsford. So obviously I didn't experience the particular problem. I think that, just to mention, I reviewed last year's similar debate, and this is, so far, this is the only question that's come up from last year. So obviously people have a lot of passion about this issue. It obviously was not addressed last year after the debate. And some people felt that the problem was that it's a state road, and the state controls the state road. But if there are ordinances in place that restrict a business's hours of operation for one reason or another, if it really is a quality of life issue, then I think we need to look at it more closely. And I intend, if elected, I'll go up there and stay there for a while and just see firsthand exactly just how bad it is.
Okay. And Pat, I added a little comment there on my own there. Any further comment on?
I mean, that's an interesting idea as far as having them go directly out to 495. There were some concerns about how that would, the logistics for setting that up, but if that's an option that the state would allow, then I would say, yeah, let's explore that. I mean, it is difficult, as you know, to get anything through the state. I mean, when I was on the board before, we had just a simple request to put a crosswalk up where, where the new development is by the trailer park. So for people especially that are using the LRTA buses that go up and down Route 110, you have to cross the street either in the morning or in the evening. And that's been 3 years in the making, and we still haven't seen it. So it takes a while, as you know, to get things through the state bureaucracy.
Thank you on that. Yes, sir, Glenn,
Can I just add one thing to that?
I'd like to hear it.
Part of the problem is that the state now paves all night long. When I was growing up, you never saw them out paving on weekends or nights. And that alleviates traffic problems, obviously, during the day. The fact that this plant seems to be servicing a lot of business, and that's why it's running all this time, means that when they bid to contractors who are actually doing the, they're not people who are, the people who do the paving are not the people who get the contract to do the road. And they must have some sort of pricing such that they are very attractive to these companies, and they seem to be winning all the bids. Now, if that's something innate from a standpoint of operating in Chelmsford gives them some advantage for that, then we need to look at that.
Thank you. And Sandy, any other comment, since I did give a little more time for everybody?
I think it just goes back to a quality of life for the neighbors that are surrounded, being affected by the emissions. And I still think that we should find a way to, if we can't stop the emissions or find some way to filter the emissions, then I think we should restrict.
Thank you.
Or build onto 495.
Or build on to 495, there you go. I have a question from the audience, and it's one that I did bring up last year. The topic in general is free cash, and I'll try to kind of wordsmith a little bit. To describe to the audience, free cash is taxes that were collected, or fees that were collected that were above and beyond the amount budgeted for in our Prop 2.5 environment, and all the fees and people buying cars and property. It's above and beyond the expected amount that we collect. And I used the example last year as if you went to a grocery store and you bought $10 worth of product and gave them a $20 bill, and they kept the other 10. That's kind of like what we do in the environment that we're in, where that's free cash. We'll just keep it because we have something we want to spend it on that we hadn't planned to. And I'd like to ask each candidate, if elected, would you consider making a pledge to give back half? And I remember the dollar. You have $1 and they take half. Well, would you consider giving back half of that to the taxpayers of that free cash, even given all the tight things we'd like to spend the money on? I'd like to spend my own money. Would you consider that? And Pat, would you give back half the free cash?
I would not want to have any kind of set amount like that. I think when we can, we give back, as we did last year, as we did several years ago. The money can come from other sources other than what you mentioned too, Brian. It might come from a reimbursement, say, for the storms that we had last year. I would expect that money would probably come in sometime either this fiscal year or next fiscal year, and that could really boost up the free cash amount, which is a good thing. Possibly we could do more than the 50%, or maybe not, depending on what other obligations we might have at the time. But I would not want to have a set rate that every year we would be committed to doing that. I just don't think it would be sustainable in the long run.
Thank you. And Glenn?
I would not support it. I think that, I think part of it is my makeup. I tend to be conservative, that I think that there are too many variables in today's world, that if you do not have a solid stabilization count, you're looking for trouble down the road. It doesn't take too much of a bump in the road. The town is doing well, for example, from excise taxes, people buying new cars, they're buying bigger cars. Sooner or later, that pipeline fills up, the revenues start to fall. And as I said, we keep getting hit with mandates every year that the state doesn't quite fund. We don't get any more money, and sooner or later, that's going to catch up with us, giving the money back. And even if you reduce the stabilization fund by giving some money back, it doesn't represent a tremendous amount of money when you consider that you're laying it over all the taxpayers in the town. So I would not support it.
Okay. And Sandy?
Well, I would support it because it's the people's money, and I think it needs to go back to them rather than keep it for who knows what it might be spent on. I think our taxpayers are burdened enough. Now they have to pay for school. We just heard in the school committee debate they want to charge them for all-day kindergarten. And there comes a point when they just say, ouch, I just can't give anymore. And I think if we can give them back half the free cash, I think it's a good thing, and I would support that.
Okay, thank you. And Pat, what are the two, do you have two major issues facing Chelmsford, and how would you plan to address them if elected to the position of selectman?
Well, I think the major issues have been addressed. I think number one is the one that's come up very recently about 129, what we do out there in order to not have a lot of empty buildings that don't generate as much tax revenue as when they are occupied. Number two is one that was brought up in the school committee forum that you had before us, how to fund full-day kindergarten. There has to be a way to do that, and I was very pleased to hear from Barbara Scarra that she doesn't see any need for a new school building, because quite frankly, I don't see the appetite in the town of Chelmsford for a new school that we would, it would pass in an override. A 40-year-old building I don't think is that old. The houses most of us live in are probably more than 40 years old. The town offices will be 100 years old next year, and that's a building that's definitely maintained its structure. I think as long as you provide proper maintenance, and then as far as how we're going to get the money for the schools, that'll have to wait for another question, I guess.
All right, Glenn, two major issues facing Chelmsford, and how would you plan to address them?
First of all, I would disagree with Pat. I think that the facilities assessment is going to come back, and we are going to need new facilities. Now, the facilities may not be an entire school, but they're going to be something. I attended the meeting. They have 4 meetings, each one 4 hours long. They are being very transparent in doing this study. And the focus of the meeting this week was on looking at the space that is actually classrooms in the schools that we have. And they had 3 colors. One color represented excess space, one color represented we have the space that the state recommends we should have, and the other color was red, which said we don't have enough space. The sheet was mostly red. That also the schools that were built 30 years ago, 40 years ago, are not built for the way that schools need to teach the students today. They're just not physically laid out the right way. And so there's a combination of not only space, there's also a question of how that space is utilized, and you can't just totally gut the building and do it over again in the same walls.
Okay. Thank you, Glenn. Pat, you were challenged on that he disagreed with you. Do you have a response?
Well, as far as the schools, I mean, I do agree that technology has improved quite a bit in the past 40 years as far as teaching, and I think from what I've seen, they have been able to integrate those updates into the existing buildings, and that improves the educational experience. In fact, that's kind of part of the reason why I think that maybe the class sizes, we talk about class sizes so much, maybe they don't need to be continually becoming smaller and smaller. Maybe they can become some moderate level, because the way kids learn these days is a lot different than it was when I learned, and most of us were in school. So I think we can make do a lot with the facilities that we currently have.
Okay. And Sandy, can you give me 2 major issues facing Chelmsford and how you plan to address them?
Well, for me, the number one issue right now is that 129 overlay. I think if anything, we should put it off until we populate all the empty buildings in all the empty space that we already have in town right now. I think right now there are, I talked to Evan, and he said there's something like 20,000 square feet or more of empty space available right now. And I think we should be finding tenants for that space before we go ahead and try to build anything else. The other issue is taxes. It's always taxes. What can we do in this town, I think, to alleviate the ever-increasing tax bills, especially for the elderly? I know that we've implemented a program where they can go and volunteer in town hall, or they can volunteer some places, and they get a little benefit, a tax cut off of their, a cut from their taxes. Maybe we could find some more creative ways to help the taxpayers who are struggling right now with high tax bills.
And I think I covered everyone on that one. The other topic I have, I'd like a general feeling for this 40B project problem that we have. Glenn, how can Chelmsford get off the 40B bad list? And this is the affordable housing that's allowed to be built in industrial areas or marginal areas or in high density by right through this.
I'm not sure I understand the question from the standpoint how we can get on, I'm not sure what you mean by the bad list.
The town
Like that.
of, the town of Chelmsford, every town in the Commonwealth needs to have 10% affordable housing by the definition of the state 40B statute. In other words, the state holds a deed on that property. That's how they measure, I believe that's how they measure the house, whether it's affordable or not, based on median income. And it allows a developer to build, as example, I stated earlier, there's some other rules, but it allows them to build 108 units on top of a hill on Mill Road, where if you went to the normal planning board, you would not be permitted to do that.
All right. First of all, I am totally committed to affordable housing. I think Chelmsford right now is about 8.5%. The goal is 10%. That's what the state kind of looks at as what you should be at. The way properties count toward that, rental units count 100%. If some of them are low income, the whole project counts toward that. And Chelmsford's making a lot of strides to that, especially with the efforts of the community housing people. They're doing a tremendous job of bringing that in. They just opened up 59 units on 110. There's another 59 unit phase 2 that's coming on board. There's some active talks going on between them and the state about the old West Campus in Lowell, that will all be converted to some sort of low income or moderate income or mixed income. And I think that we are well on our way to achieving that 10%, and I fully support all of it.
Terrific. Pat?
I agree with Glenn. I mean, the objective is to get to at least the 10% of affordable housing in the town of Chelmsford. We hear about people that have to move out because they can't afford to stay, so I think the more affordable housing we can have in Chelmsford, really the better. As far as the 40B law itself, it does cause some of the construction to be in areas where really it doesn't fit nicely. It's not, in non-residential areas, but the areas that Glenn mentioned on 110, and I know of a couple other in the initial stages, some other properties that may be developed where we could put maybe another couple hundred units that would put us right about at that 10%. And that's what we want to do. We want to get to that 10% so that we're not forced by the state to accept the developments that aren't attractive and don't fit in the right way, into the different zoning areas of the town. So I definitely favor affordable housing, and it just has to be done the right way.
Okay. And Sandy, affordable housing?
I think we're talking about the same piece of property. It's the one up in North Chelmsford where they're currently, I believe, UMass Lowell owns it.
That's correct.
And it would cost like $1 million to buy it. Someone has suggested to me recently that we should petition the state to take it over by eminent domain and use it for 40B. And we could build enough properties, enough apartments or housing there to meet our total 10% goal. I think it's a great idea.
Okay. Thank you. Glenn, you'd like to respond?
Yeah, I think there's a disconnect between what people understand affordable housing is and what affordable housing may have meant when, let's say, that I was much younger. That it's not a housing project. Affordable housing means that the people who live there work. It's not free housing. It's just discounted because the typical rent cannot be afforded with the wages that, for example, the service industries pay today. But those people work very hard. They have families, they have children. They want to be in towns which have great school systems and great moors and a quality way of life. So, the feeling that people are afraid of 40Bs, they're thinking, my feeling is they think in more of housing projects the way they used to be. And that's not what this is.
And Pat, would you like to respond as well?
Oh, well, I agree with Glenn. I mean, some of the developments, especially that the Housing Authority has worked on, are very attractive, and people like to live there, and they're good neighbors to the neighborhoods. It's just, when we get the 40Bs that try to, put something into an industrial area or on top of a hill where it doesn't really fit nicely, or and really is a detriment to the neighborhood rather than a benefit. That's the kind of thing that we want to avoid.
And as kind of a follow-up for me, since I'm moderator and can do it, in the Affordable Housing Project Plan written in 2010, one individual actually had 3 of his properties listed in that plan. The update actually picked a property on Route 129 and didn't tell the property owners that they were now part of the plan. As an example, I don't think most residents know, but there's a project plan that puts 4 3-story buildings at the intersection of Warren Avenue and Turnpike Avenue, arguably in an industrial area that is the backside of our Route 129 discussion. How would you feel about something as simple as telling the developer they need to put up a 4x8 placard on that property a couple years before they go to the zoning board and show what that will look like if this becomes a 40B? As selectmen and as residents of the town, Pat, would you consider that to be a reasonable approach so that people know what they're thinking of, instead of just seeing the property?
I think any developer should be willing to do that for any development, whether it's housing or commercial or anything like that. I absolutely think that's a great idea.
Okay. Glenn?
Well, I think it would be, in a town like Chelmsford, it would be hard to be sneaking around saying you're going to build this or that. We have tight controls on zoning. We have tight controls on the planning board. I don't think there's going to be any surprises. Whether or not it's advertised, that's another question. I think that's part of, what the town leaders are for, to be sure that everybody understands. That land, if it's worthwhile for that purpose, fine. But it may be better suited for industrial or economic development. Again, every property stands on its own merit.
Mm-hmm. Well, and again, to clarify, where my challenge was, as a selectman, I believe all you can do is encourage the developer to do something related to 40B. It's a state statute, they don't have to. But as a friendly request, would you support the concept of putting a placard out in front of the example I gave, Turnpike and Warren Avenue, with a great big picture of what it'll look like if they build that 40B project there that's part of our town's building plan? Would you support asking them as my selectman to put a sign out in front of it with a picture?
Me?
Glenn, yes, sorry.
Well, if I was developing a housing complex and I was looking to attract people, I would put a sign out just saying that I'm coming. This is what it's going to be. I'm certainly not going to. I'm going to show it in its best light, obviously. And if it's going to be put out there for 4 years before I build it, I'll probably not end up building it because the funds will probably go away before then.
And Sandy, and again, as a resident, if I came to you as selectman and asked, hey, the 40B is in our plan in 2010, nobody on my street knows about it, would you be willing to go to that developer and say, hey, you're in our building plan, paint a picture of what it'll look like on a 4x8 sheet of plywood and put it out in front before we even start the...
I think it's a great idea. I don't think most residents are aware sometimes of what's going to be happening in the neighborhoods because it happens at meetings that most people don't go to. We've been going to Board of Selectmen meetings, and if there's a big issue, the room is packed. But in general, there might be 2 people there or 3 people in the audience. And I think the average citizen would probably benefit greatly from knowing in advance what's coming down the road, and they'll have 4 years to make their voices heard.
Terrific, thank you. And I'd ask, we ran a little bit over, I'd ask each one of you to make a closing statement, both to this audience and our cameras up there, and tell them who you are. If you have a phone number or an email address, please give that out. And please ask for their vote on Tuesday, April 5th, from 7 in the morning, I believe, till 8 p.m. And Pat, would you start, please?
Okay. Thank you. Thanks, Brian, and thanks to the Republican Town Committee for sponsoring this debate and for everybody who came out here this evening. And thank you, too, for changing up the format a little bit. I think we got a little bit more content than we normally would with just straight 60-second answers for every question. So I appreciate you making the effort to change that up a little bit. My name is Pat Wojcik, and I'm running for a seat on the Board of Selectmen. I grew up in this town, and I saw it change from a small farming community to the bustling suburban town that we have now. And I know what the challenges and opportunities are that we face, and I'm ready to work with other members of the Board of Selectmen to solve those issues. I'll continue to be accessible and responsive to concerns of residents. So I respectfully ask for one of your 2 votes on Election Day, April 5th. Polls will open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m., as Brian said. I'm number 1 on the ballot. I've served you before. I've been honored to serve as a selectman before, and I look forward to serving you again. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat. And Sandy, would you go next, please?
I'd like to thank the Chelmsford Republican Town Committee, sorry, Dee, for sponsoring this debate tonight and for giving us our opportunity to talk to the voters and let them know what our positions are on some of these very important issues. I promise you, the people of Chelmsford, that I will only serve 2 or 3 terms. I'm pledging that up front, something different from everybody else, because I really, really believe that sometimes it helps to have new faces with new ideas on the board, and I think 3 terms is plenty, and so I'm making that pledge up front. I love this town. It's an amazing town. I grew up here, and I have so many fond memories, like Pat, of its rural character when we were children and we would go play in barns and roll down hills. It was just an amazing experience for a child that's a Chelmsfordite. Finally, I want to give the town manager credit for his leadership. When I go to town hall to pay my taxes or to go in and get my dog license, the staff there is so friendly and so warm, and every office that I visit, even the tax collector, they are so polite, and I credit Paul for that, for his leadership and for his ability to hire people who give back to we the residents. They're not just there to serve themselves. Finally, I want to thank all of you watching at home tonight for watching, and thank everyone that's here in the audience tonight for listening to this very long debate. And I also ask for one of your 2 votes on April 5th for Selectman. Thank you for being here.
Thank you very much.
And thank you for your great job of debate openings.
Thank you. And Glenn?
I want to thank the Chelmsford Republican Town Committee and you, Brian, for this forum. I think it was very educational for the townspeople. You know, I had prepared a general statement for closing, but I kind of have thrown that out. I think that people have to understand that this election is about economic development. I think that if you look at social media over the last 2 weeks, people are wondering, when is someone going to talk about the 129 corridor? And I congratulate the Republican Committee for bringing forth that question, because that's what people are wondering about. You know, the town is managing its business well. We are mandated to create programs, unfunded programs. We only get so much money. Chapter 7 money is not coming any more than what it is. We get a little every year, but basically we fall behind. We are committed to funding unfunded pension plans and unfunded benefits in 35 years. We're putting in $1 million a year. We probably should be putting in $3 million a year. Eventually, that will erode the money that the town has. This election is about beginning now to create an economic environment so Chelmsford could be what it is 25 years from now, what it is now. And that's why I'm running. That's why I, Glenn Diggs, hope that you consider giving me one of your 2 votes for Selectman on April 5th. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and I wish we could pick up 3 new selectmen in this vote. Thank you very much, and if you have any questions, please contact the candidates and speak directly with them. I think each one of you has a phone number or an email address that you might want to share. Glenn?
Glenn.diggs@comcast.net.
And Sandy?
sandy@sandymartinez.com.
And Pat,
Pat at patwojers.com.
thank you very much. That concludes the evening. Thank you all.
Nice job.
You did a good job.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Excellent job.
Thank you.
I hope only two more.
Huh?
I hope only two more.